I'm in the aircraft now. It's a cold and dark aircraft, so all the power is off. So the first thing we're going to do, there's the overhead, you see absolutely no power whatsoever. So the first thing we're going to do is just turn the backlighting on so we can see the controls that are going to get the engine started, get the aircraft alive. So the first thing that we need to do is to turn the master battery switch on, and you'll notice that when I turn this one on, you'll see a lot of other lights appearing as it now powers up. So it's just telling us that the fuel pump has low pressure, that engine number 1, number 2 and APU sources are off, so power is only coming from the battery. We've got low pressure on the APU, and we've got low pressure on all the hydraulic pumps. So we've got engine number 1 hydraulic pump, engine number 2 hydraulic pump and electric hydraulic pump. Auto brake is set to rejected takeoff, and we just need to make sure before we start the aircraft that the parking brake is set. So I've just set the parking brake because otherwise we'll start rolling. So the next thing I'm going to do is turn on the avionics, so that will just put a few more lights on within the aircraft. Next thing now, we need to get the APU running. So first of all, turn on the cross feed so the valve is now open so fuel can come from either side of the aircraft. I'll now turn on the electric fuel pump and you'll see the low pressure light go off, and you probably hear the pump started to work now. So we are starting to pump fuel using the battery, and what I'm now going to do is start the APU. Now when I start the APU, when it builds up pressure, the low pressure light will go out, and once it has enough pressure, APU gen off bus will appear. So if we turn that APU on and we just wait as it builds up pressure, there we go. So pressure built up, that light went off, and APU gen off bus has now come on. That means that if I put this switch on, we'll start drawing power from the APU, which will save the battery because we're still running just purely on the battery at the moment. So this tells us the source is off, so we're not using this, but it is available. So if I push this switch on, we're now using power from the APU and not the battery now. So obviously the battery can't go flat. That gives us a lot more power now, the APU, so we can now turn on the hydraulic pumps. So if I turn on engine number 1 hydraulic pump, engine number 2 hydraulic pump and electric hydraulic pump. So the low pressure lights have gone out, so they would be forcing bleed air across the engines. We need the bleed air to start the rotation of the engines before we inject the fuel. So what I'm going to do now is open a fuel valve. So engine number 1 fuel valve is now open, and then if I just go down here, there's a view out of the window. We're at Southampton at the moment. If we look down here, you might just see that it does tell us just there that the fuel valve is open, and we've got a little bit of pressure on the engine, but we now need to actually inject the fuel. So I'm going to do that now, and you'll see that engine start up, and there it goes. So it's going to stabilise now. Temperature's just coming down, so that engine's on, it's stabilised. So we look again back up at the overhead, you'll notice that generator off bus light has now appeared. So that means that engine is started, and like the APU, it's off bus, so we're not using power from it, but we could do, it's off. So what I'm going to do is turn that engine on bus, so both lights go out. It's not a good idea to keep the APU running for too long, so once you have got an engine started, that's what you would do. You turn that one off, and we would now take this one off bus. So it's still available, but it's off bus. So we've just got power now from engine number 1. I can now close this fuel valve because the engine is started, and it will keep running. Now I'm going to open up fuel valve number 2 for the second engine, and what I'll do is I'll just show you how this works. So when I inject the fuel, you'll see this, once the engine's started, the blue gen off bus light will come alive. So we're starting the engine now. There we go. So you have we're currently just taking power from engine number 1, but if we wanted we could turn that one on, and we've got both engines can now supply power to the aircraft, so if we lost an engine we'd still be powered up. But I'm just going to turn that one off. We'll just use power from engine number 1. We now turn the APU off, so what I'm going to do is, this is the one I turned on earlier, I'm going to turn that off, and when I do you'll see low pressure will appear back here and off bus will disappear because it's no longer got power, so it couldn't be used. So there it goes, that's now off bus and off. So some of the other lights, just turn that fuel valve off because the engine is started. We've also got the yaw damper, so we can turn yaw damper on. We've got anti-ice, and we've got the probe or P-type heat. And then down here we've got the passenger signs, so no smoking, and seat belts. We've got auto brake set to RTO, which is rejected takeoff. We've got switches here for beacon lights, strobe lights, taxi lights, landing lights, and the parking brake is there. We can now turn this fuel pump off. We don't need the electric fuel pump anymore because we've got the hydraulic ones on, and we can close this cross feed. We don't need to cross feed now, and that's it. That's the first start up. Everything looks okay and everything's working as it should do. Again, there's a view out the window. That's Southampton. Hope you enjoyed that.